In this video, I'll show you how to use vintage lenses on a mirrorless Canon EOS R camera, specifically Olympus OM mount and Praktica PB mount lenses. But the basic principles also apply to other vintage lenses and mirrorless cameras. To use a vintage lens on a Canon EOS R system camera, there are a couple of things that you will need to do. For instance, you'll have to find a way of connecting the lens to the camera, and there's also a couple of things that you need to change in the menu settings. The most important change is to make sure that the shutter will release when you press the shutter button. On a Canon R system camera, go to the orange menu, then look for the setting called Release Shutter Without Lens. Then change it from off to on. I mainly use Olympus OM-System lenses, so I've got an OM to EOS R lens adapter, but if you're adapting a different type of vintage lens, you'll need an adapter that goes from that type of mount to the RF mount. This is the lens adapter I use with my Olympus OM-System vintage lenses. It's the K&F Concept OM to EOS R adapter, and it looks like an extension tube. Using the adapter is just like mounting a lens. Match up the red dot on the adapter with the one on the camera body, insert and twist. Then mount the lens. This time the red dot is off to the side. Match the dots up, insert the OM system lens and twist until you hear the click as the lens locks into place. To remove the lens, press the metal button on the side of the lens and twist in a counterclockwise direction. I also have a Carl Zeiss Sienna 50mm f1.8 lens with a Praktica PB mount. Now, this uses an adapter ring rather than an adapter tube. Unfortunately, I've not been able to find a PB to RF adapter, so I use a PB to EOS adapter ring, meaning an EOS EF. To make this work, I also need to use a Canon EF to RF adapter. So what you do is put the match up the red dot on the side of the adapter with that on the camera in the usual way, insert and twist, and then use the PB to EOS adapter ring. The side with the flange has got a red dot on it. Match that up with the one on the EF to RF adapter, insert and twist, and you'll hear a click as it locks into place. Then you can take your PB mount lens, match up the red dot that's just there on the side of the lens with the red dot that's on the adapter ring there, insert the lens and twist clockwise. Now, this doesn't have a locking mechanism. It's just kept in place by friction, so you won't hear a click this time. To remove the lens, take hold of the lens and just twist it counterclockwise and it will come off. Then you need to press the little locking button on the side of the EF to RF adapter to release the PB to EOS, and then just twist that and it'll come off. And then finally press the button on the lens on the camera body and twist, and off comes your EF to RF adapter. Now, when I use my OM system vintage lenses, I can focus on subjects at any distance. This buttercup in my lawns, I can focus at the minimum focus distance of the lens, and also on these distant houses and apartments that are effectively at infinity. That's because the lens adapter ensures the back focus distance or the flange focal distance is correct. Unfortunately, that's not the case for the PB to EOS ring adapter. For a start, the back focus distance on the PB lenses is almost 0.5 millimeter more than on EF lenses, and then the adapter ring itself is about a couple of millimeters thick, so there's a distance mismatch. What that means is that when I mount the Carl Zeiss Sienna Praktica lens onto my Canon EOS R camera, Close subjects like the buttercup will be in focus, but distant subjects like the houses and apartments can't be brought to focus because the lens won't focus to infinity. However, we can make this work, although not at large apertures. Here's the image of those buildings, and on my computer I'll zoom in to those buildings in the distance. The focus ring on the camera was at infinity, and the aperture was at f1.8, and everything looks hopelessly blurry. I'll gradually stop down the lens, and we'll see how far we need to go before the image looks okay. So at f2.8, it's slightly better. At f4, things seem to be improving. At f5.6, the focus isn't too bad, especially if we zoom out and view the whole of the image. Now, let's stop down to f8. That's looking not bad. Going to f11, the focus at infinity looks really good. Now, this lens can go to f16, but when we do that, the image goes slightly soft again, and that's due to diffraction. So stopping down to f5.6, f8, and f11 will make distant objects appear in focus when you turn the focus ring to infinity. So that's how to adapt two different types of vintage lenses onto a Canon EOS R system camera. But how do you use these fully manual lenses? First, unless you want a truly authentic vintage photography experience, make sure you activate IBIS and enter the lens focal length in the camera's menu, assuming it has stabilization. This will allow you to get the best performance from the lens when shooting handheld. With these lenses, you're not going to have autofocus, so you're going to have to do that manually using the focus ring on the lens. You could, for instance, estimate the distance to the subject and then turn the focus ring to that distance on the lens. But you can use a couple of features on your mirrorless camera to help you get focus. First, you could enable focus peaking in the menu. Areas that are in focus will typically appear red on the display or the electronic viewfinder, although you can change that color to be a different one in the settings. The other thing that you can do is use the magnify button. On my R6, one press will give 5 times magnification and a second press will give 10 times magnification. If I turn the focus ring on the lens back and forth, I can find the point where I'm in focus. Turning to exposure, this doesn't have to be too daunting either. You can use the camera's light meter and histogram to make sure that you're not clipping the whites or the blacks. These tools will help you set the correct exposure using the aperture ring and the camera's shutter speed and ISO features. If you want more help from your camera, set the shutter speed or ISO or both to auto, then dial in your preferred aperture on the lens. This way, you only need to worry about controlling the focus. So just because you're using a vintage lens doesn't mean that you have to go 100% manual. Your camera has plenty of tools to help you. So that's how to use a vintage Olympus OM-System Zuiko lens or a Praktica PB mount lens on a Canon EOS R system camera. I'll be recording a video about the OM-System mount lenses that I've got and show lots of examples that I've taken with those lenses. When it's ready, I'll put a link at the end of this video. Now, can I ask a small favor? Please like, share and subscribe if you found this video useful. It really does help this channel grow. And to make sure that you don't miss any of my new videos, hit that notification bell. I wish you well and look forward to seeing you again next time.